What is going on, everybody? Another exciting week of NFL action in the books. We are here now for the Week 7 Power Rankings show. Before we do dive in, if you could take just a second to hit that like button, it really does help me out. I appreciate it. Also, if you enjoy my analysis and you want more in-depth reactions to all of these games, I encourage you to check out my podcast, The Fully Inflated Football Show. It's been a record year for the podcast. Shout out to the listeners. If you want to go check it out, we'll see you there. But let's go ahead and get started at the bottom of the rankings, keeping the bottom tier named currently Unserious. And this week, a new team at the bottom, although a familiar team at the bottom, the Carolina Panthers. This is really a historically bad defense. You would have to have a historically great offense to even think about winning games with this unit right now. At least Xavier Legette is looking like a much-needed draft hit for the Carolina Panthers. But then at number 31, talk about historic, the Cleveland Browns. I really think we are looking at a situation that we will look back on 10, 20 years from now and just laugh at the time that the Cleveland Browns let their sexual predator at quarterback, who took his money and ran, could not give two shits about the Cleveland Browns or his teammates. The ownership could not swallow their pride, admit their mistake, and let the team go down like a sinking ship stuck with a rapist on board. Then at number 30, the Las Vegas Raiders. Things continue to get out of hand for them. They will be dropping 3 spots in the rankings and down into this currently unserious tier. Devonte Adams gone. This team is spiraling for any semblance of positivity right now, really on both sides of the football. I just hope this offseason they can kind of commit to a real rebuild. I know there's some talks about them trading Max Crosby too to the Lions. We'll see if that surfaces. I think you can still build around Max Crosby, and that's probably what I would do, but it has gotten so bad that if they did just fully blow this up, I would even understand it. But then at number 29, the New England Patriots, actually moving up 3 spots in the loss this week. Much more about the other teams around them just looking worse. But hey, Drake May, I thought, really looked the part. And heading into this game against the Texans, that was about as tough of an ask, given the Patriots' surrounding cast, for a rookie quarterback to make his first start against the Texans there. And if nothing else, you walk out of that game feeling like he's not going to come out of that game losing his confidence, spiral out of control. But I would take it a step further and say he actually played pretty well. He made a lot more good plays than bad. He did have the interception on the overthrow, the strip sack fumble, partial blame on him, but the right tackle did lose immediately. It was like, their third, fourth string right tackle. And you can ignore the second interception. It was a batted screen pass that just took an unlucky bounce. I thought the athleticism, the arm talent, obviously on that deep touchdown to Keyshawn Boutte, brought a little bit of a spark and a little bit of life to the Patriots offense and gave them a little bit of something to play for here. So at least that's exciting, even if I think this team has a lot of work to do. I mean, their run defense in that game against Houston, I don't remember a Patriots team being that bad against the run. So their defensive issues, they're definitely going in the wrong direction on that side of the ball. But then the Miami Dolphins on bye this week, they're actually going to go +2 just because the Raiders and Browns are collapsing. But they're just kind of staying in place for the most part as we wait to see if this Tua situation can, if he can get back and get the Dolphins back on track. Doesn't seem that's going to be this week. Then at 27, the Tennessee Titans, again, just kind of by default going up a spot because they aren't quite as dysfunctional as the Browns or the Raiders, but they're not building the momentum they wanted to. Coming off the bye week, they fall to 1-4. Will Levis, again, not a good game. They're hanging around in these games, but still here a third of the way into the season now, no identity and no real way to win football games. Then at number 26, the Jacksonville Jaguars, stuck out there in London one more week. Honestly, if they were returning to the U.S., you would think that would have been the game that got Doug Peterson fired. Maybe a little bit too much dysfunction to invite into the situation, having them stay abroad this week. And if you're a Jags fan, you almost hope that they lose at this point to the Patriots so that they do just pull the trigger, commit to next season. This is just not working. It's a tough thing to split because I don't necessarily think the play calling is the problem with Doug Peterson being the offensive coach. It's just the lack of execution and the lack of mental toughness that this team has exhibited now for essentially a full season, going back to when their collapse began at the end of last season. And in that game against the Bears, they were moving the ball like decently well, but the fumbles, man, those Bears are coming after the football, and they continue to just put the ball on the turf. Trevor Lawrence not playing great, obviously, but I think it's a situation where his mistakes are accentuated because they basically need him to be an MVP quarterback for them to even be competitive right now. So they do fall into the currently unserious tier, and if they lost to the Patriots, I don't think that would surprise anybody, and that's why they are in the same tier. Now, before we jump up to our next tier here in this spooky month of October, Underdog Fantasy is running their Boost-tober promotion, where every single day you can get a token for an even larger profit boost for your pick'em contests. I love a good pun, can definitely appreciate the promo, but I also love playing pick'em on Underdog, where you string together your lineup, selecting player stats higher or lower, and these contests keep you glued to your seat towards the end of any given football game you're watching, with a chance at massive payouts that now with the Boost-tober promotion can be even bigger. So right now, if you sign up using promo code TFG at Underdog, they will give you a bonus match up to $1,000, and you will support my channel in the process. That is promo code TFG at Underdog. And let's now get to our next tier in the power rankings. But now our frisky tier, we are going to begin this with the New Orleans Saints at number 25, keeping the same spot. They fall to 2 and 4. They are dangerously close to slipping down into that currently unserious tier as they lose their 4th straight. I mean, their defense, this has not been the Saints defense that we've known and loved in the Dennis Allen era. So that's honestly their biggest problem. Spencer Rattler's exciting though, man. The arm talent on clear display. You can see why there was talk about him being a potential number 1 overall pick once upon a time. The traits are there. The process was like okay for him, especially for a 5th round rookie making his first start. I just really have no interest at all in seeing this team go back to Derek Carr at really any point. I am curious to see where that goes, but in terms of the Saints' record this season, it definitely does not feel like bringing up the P word in terms of playoffs is remotely close to realistic for this team right now. Then the New York Giants at number 24, actually moving up a couple spots with the Saints and Jags kind of getting blown out this week. But I don't feel too different about this Giants team. If anything, you're underwhelmed by the offensive production against that Bengals defense that has really struggled. But on the flip side, the Giants defense actually has really turned it on. And I do think this team has found a lot of young players that are reasons to get excited about the kind of future of this team. They've been out there without Malik Neighbors as of late. But, guys like Drew Phillips in the slot, that D-line has played really great. And Thibodeau wasn't even out there in that game against the Bengals. So it's not all bad for the Giants. They are the definition of a frisky team. But, yeah, if you were going to have any sort of hype or takes that this team could go on a run, that would have had to start with beating the Bengals on Sunday night to get to 3-3. But then at number 23, the Arizona Cardinals dropping down a tier, dropping down 3 spots. This has been just a up and down season for the Cardinals. Their highs are really good when Kyler Murray is on and this defense lucks into a half-ass decent performance on defense, but unfortunately, too many weeks are like this last week against the Packers, where we are looking at a horrifically bad pass rush. Was already gonna be bad, but they've lost the 2 guys they were most excited about this year in BJ Ojulari, and we have yet to see their first-round pick, Darius Robinson. They don't have the guys in the back end either to make up for it, so they're just grasping at straws defensively, putting way too much pressure on the offense. So if they aren't getting those weeks where Kyler catches fire and is playing like a top 5 quarterback, because there's been a couple weeks this season where he's had, really some of the most spectacular quarterback performances of the season, but there's these down weeks too where his throws have been just a little bit off. He's not quite as sharp with his reads, and that's what we saw against the Packers, not to mention the fumbles from the offense as well. I know Kyler's going to catch a lot of blame for that game, but his players kept putting the ball on the dirt too, so that doesn't help, obviously. A lot of false starts as well. So a sloppy day for the Cardinals. And unfortunately right now, they have to prove some form of consistency before I can keep them in that, kind of fringe playoff caliber tier, which is our next tier where they were last week. And then sticking in the NFC West with the Los Angeles Rams, they get to stay put on the bye this week. Really one more week here where they feel like they're right on the cusp of getting a lot of these guys back. The offensive linemen and Puka Nacua, especially Cooper Kupp, is like itching to go this week. I do think this team can be a playoff caliber team when healthy, but obviously we're waiting to see if they can get there in time. So very fitting they stay put, and they get to play the Raiders this week. So things could very much be trending in the right direction for the Rams as early as next week. Then we have the Indianapolis Colts also staying put at number 21, a close win over the Tennessee Titans. Not too much to add this week. I mean, the offensive line continues to be so impressive. So leaning into Joe Flacco continuing to play pretty well. And then the defense stepping up against a Titans offense that has struggled against everybody. So I'm not quite ready to say the Colts defense has bounced back after a disaster week the week before against the Jags. But 3-3 does feel pretty nice. I think we get Anthony Richardson back, and kind of the second trimester of the season hopefully can get a little bit more interesting for the Colts here. We'll see. But then the Denver Broncos at number 20, dropping down a couple spots here and dropping down a tier. Definitely a disappointing week for me. Last week, if I'm going to rank them up into our next tier as a fringe playoff caliber team, I would expect them to come out, beat the Chargers at home against a Chargers team that wants to win really the same way, running the ball, playing defense, and the Broncos unable to execute that this week. And it's a tough world to live in when I don't think most of us really trust the talent base on this Broncos team. And I thought Bo Nix was actually pretty solid in this game. It was just, the time of possession was completely lopsided, near 2-1, Chargers favoring the Broncos. So they couldn't get the ball. And when they did get the ball, they were the team that lost the turnover battle. So just not the day you want for the Broncos. They're going to drop down a little bit. And then the Chargers are going to be at 19. I'm really close to, taking the Chargers a lot more seriously. I think they've checked every box you've wanted to see given their schedule. They have absolutely been that team under Coach Harbaugh coming in to implement this new identity, this new culture. That's been accomplished, right? They're 3-2. They've had their bye. They're running the ball, dominating time of possession, limiting turnovers, doing exactly what they're setting out to do. They've raised the floor of this team tremendously. And I know Chargers fans will come out and say you can only play who's on your schedule, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not how my process works. I need to see some impressive wins before we start talking about this being a very potent team. They're a very capable team, the definition of a frisky team. And there is something to be said about avoiding mistakes and playing smart team football, absolutely. But there's still not a lot of dynamism as it relates to this team. Maybe my guy Kamani Vidal can bring that to the table. I don't know. Nice touchdown by our guy out of Troy. But yeah, their wins this year are against the Panthers, the Raiders, and a one-score win against the Broncos. And I can already predict with their upcoming schedule of the Cardinals, the Saints, the Browns, and the Titans, this team's going to be sitting at 6-3. I'll probably push them up to a degree because you keep winning, you're going to steadily climb. But I can already see Chargers fans are going to be saying, hey, this is a top 10 football team. You got to make us Super Bowl contenders, all this stuff. And I'll just be like, man, you haven't beaten anybody. They haven't to this point, really. And it's not the Chargers' fault, but I'm also not going to pretend that they've done a ton to blow me away this season. So it's a nuanced conversation, one that Chargers fans probably won't be happy with. I'm excited that the Harbaugh hire seems like a hit, and they're certainly building things, but that's just where I'm at with the Chargers. You guys can let me know if I'm a hater or not. But now as we jump to our next tier, one of my favorite times of the year in this Power Rankings series, when we get to break out Schrodinger's Box of Cats as a tier here. This is a reference to the Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger, who theorized, and forgive me, I'm not an expert in quantum mechanics, but his experiment involved a cat inside a box with a contraption that may or may not kill the cat based on a random set of outcomes. And he theorized within this experiment that the cat is to be considered both alive and dead without the certainty of how the contraption would or would not kill the cat. And that very much describes the teams within this tier. They are a mystery box. We know they have potential. We could open the box within a week or 4 weeks and find out that these teams are very much alive. But without knowing how this is going to go, they might already be dead. And that is going to start with the Dallas Cowboys at number 18. I think had the worst week of any team in the league, allowing the Detroit Lions, some alive cats, to come into their building and detonate a nuclear explosion on the Dallas Cowboys. Just so crazy, too, to see Jerry Jones after the game saying, "What a shocker. Who could have seen this coming?" Jerry, what are you talking about? We all saw this coming. I know I certainly had the Lions spread as one of my picks on the Patreon exclusive picks. If you want to get access to that every week, check out the link in the description below. But this was so obvious. The Cowboys now for an extended period of time have shown us that they cannot hang with the physical teams that want to run the football. And the Lions had whatever they wanted with this Cowboys defense. Now, is there still the possibility that this can be a playoff caliber team? Yes, I do think so. And they have run into two of the hardest matchups based on what we described. Detroit and Baltimore have kicked their ass. And those two teams, by the way, are going to rank pretty high in these power rankings. So I don't think it's full-scale panic, but definitely a bad week. They're way too dependent on Dak basically playing perfect, being on the same page with CeeDee Lamb. It's a lethal combination, but that's really all they have to work with right now. So a -7 for Dallas this week. But then at number 17, the other team in contention for worst week in the NFL, going all the way back to about 2 hours after I released the Week 6 Power Rankings show, when they fired Robert Saleh, full-on chaos. They go out and lose a just crazy, wild, disastrous night against the Bills, where the game was close, but to see them repeatedly shoot themselves in the foot with mistakes, penalties, missed field goals, as the Jets have. I mean, this team feels like every single snap they are trying to run up the down escalator. And until they can prove that that's not who they are, it is going to be damn near impossible to trust that this Jets team can come out of Schrodinger's box alive, if you will. But full disclosure, this team climbed back a couple spots this morning. Certainly got me to buy back into the intrigue of this team, and how could it not when they go and trade for Devonte Adams, still, in my opinion, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, uniquely equipped to come in and solve a lot of the issues that this Jets offense has had. I've talked about this, but I'll hit on it again because a lot of people are going to be clicking on this video to hear my thoughts on the Jets going to get Devonte Adams. I mean, man, I have talked about trying to parse the Jets' offensive struggles between how well is Aaron Rodgers actually playing versus how much is the offense struggling because this is Aaron's offense that he wants to run that is so predicated on checks and timing throws, chemistry throws. We've seen now miscommunications at the end of the Broncos game, at the end of the Vikings game, and now a somewhat similar throw trying to connect with Mike Williams leads to another game-ending interception with Aaron Rodgers. Not just the big moments, but play in, play out. This offense is almost exclusively predicated on what Aaron wants to do, what he sees with the defense, and the types of checks he makes with his wide receivers. There is not a human on this planet more well-equipped to fix that specific issue. These two guys, Devonte and Aaron Rodgers, now back in the exact same offensive playbook that they had when they were last together. Even if it's not Nathaniel Hackett calling plays anymore, that's still the system in place here. This has a chance to reconnect as something electric and solve a lot of the issues that this team has had, beating man coverage, having answers for the blitz, coming up with big plays in big moments. It's hard for me to not get sucked back into that, I will be honest. And Garrett Wilson goes from wide receiver 1 to wide receiver 2. Instead of getting the number 1 corner, look at that Broncos team where Pat Surtain dominated that matchup over Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson becomes a number 2 wide receiver against number 2 corners. That's going to help them beat man coverage that has given this team so many fits. So to me, the Jets had to take advantage of this specific move. If it was any other player in the league becoming available, the Jets should not have made this move. Tried to win with the pieces they have, but the fact that it was Devonte Adams that became available, it had to get done. They go out and do it. Now it comes down to execution. The penalties specifically have got to get cleaned up for the Jets. They have been disastrous for this team in really what have been some close losses against great football teams, the Bills and the Vikings. I know it's all doom and gloom with the Jets, and I know everybody wants me to drop the Jets into the 20s, go full out, I was completely wrong about the Jets. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. I ranked them too high, and I did. I ranked them way too high coming into the year. That much is obvious, but both things can be true. I was too high on this team, but also there's still reason to believe with a very easy schedule coming up that this team can at least make things very interesting. Now, the last thing I'll say here is they're struggling on the defensive line, and a big part of why I was so high on the Jets coming into the year was that Aaron wasn't going to have to play at an MVP level for this team to win football games, and they can't stop the run, and their pass rush has been abysmal this year. They desperately missed Jermaine Johnson. That injury has proved devastating to this defensive line. They botched the Hassan Reddick situation. Teams are just doubling Quinnen Williams every single snap, and nobody else can really win. And at the end of the day, that is going to hurt the upside compared to what I felt about this team coming in, because I felt like if they just had the 14th best offense in the league, they were going to be serious Super Bowl contenders based on what that defense has done. Well, Saleh's not there anymore. Ulbricht's got his hands full. The defensive line isn't as good. Yes, I think this team can very much get back on track, maybe get into the playoffs, make things interesting, but their margin for error is effectively zero from this point moving forward. So a lot of time needed to be spent on the Jets this week, considering the power rankings were posted last week before the Saleh firing. They're now going trade for Adams. They're a big talking point. Some of you are tired of me talking about the Jets, but they have been one of the more fascinating teams to cover this season. Essentially a must-win game coming up Sunday night against the Steelers. Got to go get it done. But then the Seattle Seahawks at number 16, a team that has certainly had their struggles. They've dropped 3 straight. Seahawks fans were big mad at me when they weren't inside the top 10 at 3-0. Yet another example of hey, yeah, you play who's on your schedule, but when all you're doing is beating bad teams, there's only so much credit you can get. They've had some real opponents and have struggled. Their line play is proven to be a pretty big issue right now, specifically at right tackle with Stone Forsythe, but a couple weeks in a row, they have not had any semblance of a run game, and their defense has really struggled as they've battled through a lot of injuries. I'm not done with the Seahawks here, but when you're really counting on Geno Smith playing a perfect game every week, and he did play some damn near perfect games early in the season, that's just a tough world to live in. So 16 feels like a good spot for the Seahawks, not in the sense that they're a bland average team, more in the sense that they're a very polarizing team where the end results are a 3-3 squad. But then the Cincinnati Bengals at number 15, moving down a spot this week, getting the win over the Giants on Sunday night, a game they had to win, but it certainly was not the convincing win that leads you to think that this team is going to go on a run. But there is some good, some bad on the Bengals here. I think the bad, obviously, is what the hell happened with this offense. They completely forgot about who they were the last 2 weeks, where Burrow was sharp, knifing the ball to all 3 levels of the defense. Looked like world beaters offensively the last couple of weeks, and really outside of one big run from Joe Burrow, one really, really big, exciting run that was a ton of fun. This team really struggled to move the ball all game. So they got to get things back on track. You're just kind of praying that that's a hangover after a tough game against Baltimore last week. But definitely some encouragement, I would say, for the defense. I know we all want to laugh at the Giants, but they had at least been like adequate offense in the last few weeks. They looked like they were building some things, and this was a damn near dominant performance from the Bengals defense. I think getting some of those guys back, like Sheldon Rankins, BJ Hill playing a little better, Miles Murphy into the lineup now. They have bodies on the defensive line. It's helping guys on the back end. Lou Anarumo perhaps making some adjustments. So slightly encouraging on that side of the ball. So tough to parse all that, but a win in a must-win game last week. Now they get Cleveland this week. So hopefully, again, really must win. Get to 3-4. Start putting things together here. Maybe they can go on a run. Get back some of that hype that myself and many certainly had on them coming into the year. Then the Falcons at number 14. This offense is really starting to hum, and to see them really get back into the run game, which was so good for them earlier in the year, after they have really discovered a lot about themselves as a passing offense. I think the Falcons offense is very much finding itself. All this pistol offense, Kirk Cousins getting very comfortable with that. I feel pretty damn good about what things are doing on the offensive side of the ball for Atlanta. Defensively, I was at this game in person. I just can't trust this unit. This is an abysmal pass rush. They put so much pressure on the secondary. They have some playmakers, of course. Guys like Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell got a big pick and a big spot in this game. Justin Simmons out there too. So you've got some guys that can hopefully continue to produce turnovers for this defense and win games for this team. But, I think Atlanta is very much how we felt about them coming into the year now. Very good offense and not the best defense. So 14 is a good spot for them at 4-2 for the Falcons after a rough start. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers also at 4-2. Now, they are very much like the Chargers, where their wins are just not all that impressive. They beat Atlanta week 1 as they were very much not quite put together as a team. That's their best win. They beat Denver 13-6. They beat the Chargers week 3, a very injured Chargers team, and then the Raiders last week. Difference is the Steelers obviously have a much more established track record of their D-line, their pass rush. They do have one distinguished elite strength about this team that they can build game plans around and try to win football games. They actually move up 4 spots this week with teams around them falling. Them decimating the Raiders with a great pass rush and running the football isn't really going to change my opinion on the Steelers. I think it is very clear that in weeks where their run game is working, they're a very, very tough out and certainly a playoff caliber team. But I would not say Fields is playing well right now, not at least throwing the ball. He had some good runs this week. I feel like they're getting closer and closer to putting Russ in there. So they're certainly not perfect, but hey, 4-2 certainly feels pretty good, at least for now, if you're a Steelers fan. And they do have an opportunity, in my opinion, to get their first really impressive win against the Jets on Sunday Night Football. So we'll see. But then, the fastest, highest risers in this video, the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams has arrived. We have seen incremental growth throughout the season, a little bit better from week 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4 was a decent jump, 4 to 5 was an even bigger jump, 5 to 6, a massive leap forward for Caleb Williams, looking like everything that was advertised as something like a generational type of quarterback. The Patrick Mahomes comps on him honestly on full display in this game. Some spectacular plays in and out of structure. That's the most promising thing, is the processing is getting a little bit better every week. Still not knifing his way through defenses with his reads and being a surgeon out there, but that's not expected in week 6 of his rookie season. But they are putting a lot on his plate. He's not making mistakes with the ball other than a weird interception where I don't know if he had a brain fart or tried to pull back at the last second or what the hell happened on that one interception that he threw where he just kind of floated it out there on a corner route. Obviously, you don't want that, but when he was so great every other drop back in this game, essentially, you can excuse it a little bit, I think. And to me, the touchdown pass to Keenan Allen, where he identifies the hole for a back shoulder completion, that's the type of high-end quarterbacking stuff. We can talk about the athleticism, the pocket presence, the Mahomesy plays out of structure, the arm talent. That's all great and was on display in parts in this game. But to recognize, all right, this defender's got his back turned. Me and Keenan Allen have repped this in practice. We know the timing of it. I just got to put it on his back shoulder in the end zone for a tight window touchdown pass and throw a perfect pass while doing so. That's the type of stuff that he did do in college that really got you excited. And beyond that, they're getting stuff from the run game. A huge credit to DeAndre Swift. I'm not going to say I was wrong about DeAndre Swift, because I will stand on the fact that his tape in Philadelphia, at the end of Detroit, in the first 2 weeks for Chicago, this is a runner that could not pick a hole, got east and west way too much, didn't just run with intensity like he has for the last 3 weeks. Credit the coaching staff, credit DeAndre Swift. They are getting him to run with commitment, with power, contact balance in a way that we just have never seen from DeAndre Swift. And right now, that's making a world of difference for this offense, too, because they had no run game to start this season. The defense is doing their thing, of course. Kevin Byard's been such a good signing for them to complete that secondary that's one of the best in the league. Things are humming for Chicago right now. And, man, I'm almost talking myself into bumping them up to the playoff caliber tier. I think with it being a win against the Jags, let's wait for the bye week and see what they look week 8 against Washington. I would say, if we're talking about this being Schrodinger's box of cats, the bear here is poking its head out of the box saying, hey, I'm alive, just let me out. I think we're going to go with that analogy and kind of see where they're at week 8 if they can take care of Washington. This could go from all right, things are working, the Bears are going to be really good for a long time, to they could be really good this year. And they are at least good right now. But let's take that jump into the playoff caliber tier. I do have the Eagles at 11, but they're actually dropping down 2 spots here. Still doesn't feel like this team is clicking on all cylinders, and I still don't fully know what to do with this Eagles team. It does remind me a little bit of last year, where it's well, they're winning games, but things seem off in the locker room. Jalen Hurts just continues to just not be anything really special right now. And I think you can certainly point to some other aspects of this team. The play calling is certainly not fantastic. The defense is nothing special right now. But I do think an underlying issue for this Eagles team, this version of the Eagles team, the disappointing Eagles compared to that amazing 22 season, the underlying issue is Jalen Hurts is just not playing at the same level. And I made a whole video talking about that, but they still have all the talent in the world. A.J. Brown is just absurd. When he plays, it just makes a world of difference. So, yes, I do think the Eagles are still a playoff caliber team that can beat playoff caliber teams. Do I think they're a deep playoff contender? Do I think they have the consistency to do that right now? No. But again, a tough team to know what to do with. If you don't like this ranking, I kind of understand it. But that's just where I'm at with this team right now. We'll continue to kind of evaluate them. To be fair, they have had one less game to get a read on than these other teams. Then the Green Bay Packers at number 10, by far their best game as a team. And for Jordan Love to finally have okay, there he is. There's the guy. There's the $55 million quarterback. Full game of just great quarterbacking. Much more accurate in this game. He had one pass where he kind of left it behind Kraft up the sideline. Might have been an even better play, but it was a great read on the play from Love. So, that's some of the ebbs and flows with him, but for the most part, man, was on the money. Made his 2 best throws on the season in this game. The touchdown pass to Watson, a big 4th down completion over the middle of the field, throwing into a crazy window that very few quarterbacks would even see on that play. I loved the back shoulder touchdown too. I know there was a lot of debate on whether or not it was a good throw, but knowing it's a 0 blitz, he has to sprint backwards just to buy enough time. And this was the 2nd touchdown to Dobbs, where he puts it near the sideline. Perfect timing, perfect accuracy, in my opinion, with the corner having his head turned, knowing that was going to be a pretty high percentage look for Love. He executed it great. So he seems more and more comfortable with the knee every single week. That's a big deal for the Packers. Beyond that, I mean, this pass protection is absurdly good. I know they played the Cardinals this week, but it's been good all season long. Zach Tom is having like an all-pro caliber season at right tackle. And the Packers defense, I think, is coming to its own a little bit with this half-lead defense. The pass rush still isn't where they would hope it would be, given the investment and the talent that they have on that D-line. You want to see them be able to win with 4 more often if they want to consistently beat high-end teams and get up into the next tier. But a lot of their third down stuff has been really, really good with the blitzes and their situational defense. And shout out Evan Williams, a pick I was not a fan of. He's been a huge impact rookie as a kind of dime safety, making a difference on the back end, creating turnovers and stuff. So, great week for the Packers. They actually aren't moving in the power rankings, though. You know, they came into the year with expectations. I've talked about how the first kind of 5 weeks of their season were just very strange. So good to kind of confirm that they are a top 10 team, but it is the Cardinals. They still have a lot to prove before they start to climb up these rankings even further. And this week, hosting the Houston Texans in Lambeau is a great opportunity to get this hype train really to leave the station. All right, then at number 9, the Tampa Bay Bucks. They climbed to 4-2. I really like this Bucks team, man. I really do. Baker has been a demon 5 out of 6 weeks with one kind of trap game performance against the Denver Broncos that at this point I'm kind of ready to excuse. The entire team was flat that week, but the offense is humming right now. I mean, Chris Godwin, of course, like I've always been this huge Chris Godwin guy. That was the first draft class I had on this channel. He was one of my favorite players in that draft. Like I've always loved Chris Godwin. But of course, this is the year I come out and say, I don't know if he's even that great of a number 2 wide receiver. He's looked kind of flat the last couple years. The explosiveness hasn't all been there. Of course, the second I back out of Chris Godwin, when he was like, I think he was on my top 10 breakout list last year because I thought the sort of like Sean McVay offense, Cooper Kupp role thing was going to be great for him. That didn't work out for me last year. But of course, this is the year. There he is. There is Chris Godwin doing the thing I said he was going to do last year, kind of overtaking Mike Evans as the primary focus of this passing game. But hey, I'm cool with it, man. He looks so good. Looks like some version of like DJ Moore, Jamar Chase, where he can be a great receiver to all 3 levels, but he also is like an elite run after catch threat. He's been a beast and a game changer for this offense. Baker, again, as I said, has been fantastic. They get Gedeke back. This offensive line has been sweet. And then something I didn't necessarily see happening this year, this run game is emerging as a real piece for this Bucs team. Bucky Irving is tremendous. I wish I was higher on him than I was in the draft. I was scared by the measurables. I shouldn't have been. His college tape was amazing. His NFL tape's been amazing. His contact balance, his vision has been on full display. Sean Tucker, college football fans, draft junkies unite. He gets an opportunity out there. Dude, I don't say this lightly. In this game against the Saints, if you told me that was Jonathan Taylor, I would have said, yeah, it sounds about right. Like his size, the way he was running his legs through contact and the speed and some of the plays in the receiving game, like in this game, that's how he played. So he looks like a real weapon. We've always known he's had talent, but for some reason they haven't really used him yet. But he gets out there with Rachaad White getting injured, and with those other 2 running backs playing well, Rachaad White is running harder. So you put all that on top of a Todd Bowles defense that has it's been porous at spots, but they've got a amazing rookie in Tyke Smith. Was one of my favorite players in this draft class. He's on a defensive rookie of the year trajectory right now. My number 1 safety in this draft class. Been a monster. And then Zion McCollum having a great year. They get Kalijah Kancey back this week. Like, Todd Bowles is going to be able to straighten this defense out in time. They're exciting, man. It was just the Saints, so I don't want to go overboard with hype here. But they do get a +4 this week, back into the top 10. And I would say they're very close in my mind to reaching the top tier. I just think this has potential to be a very complete team. And their upside is just so much better, in my opinion, than I viewed it coming into the year for sure. Then at number 8, Washington. I mean, I thought everything we've said about Washington held up against Baltimore. Jaden Daniels was very good. It's just like they don't have the horses on defense to go into Baltimore and beat them. Like, that was a big ask. They were competitive. Daniels still looks sweet. But in this matchup against one of the best run defenses in the league, you take the Commanders' offense has been great through the air and on the ground. When you rip out the ground aspect of it, and Jaden a team with a Roquan and a Kyle Hamilton that are gonna make sure those big scrambles don't happen, you rip that element away from the offense. They're still a pretty good unit, but not a world beater. And then you're putting a lot more pressure on the defense that, again, just could not slow down Lamar and Derrick Henry at the end of the day in this one. So I don't really feel any worse about Washington. I think they lived up to the test and still deserve to be ranked the highest team in the NFC East. But with that loss, I do think they're in kind of the perfect spot on the outside looking in terms of the deep playoff contenders tier. They put up a fight, but did feel a little bit, I hate to say outclassed by the Ravens, but out-tiered by the Ravens. But let's do that. Let's jump up into that deep playoff contenders tier. And not a ton of shakeup with this group. The Bills are going to stay put at number 7. Obviously a big win. They take first place. I think the mental toughness of this team was my biggest takeaway in this win against the Jets. It felt like heading into that fourth quarter where it was just a madhouse football game. Penalties galore, missed field goals, missed PATs. You got the Hail Mary before half. You had Josh Allen fumbles a ball that gets a lucky bounce that was a 7-point difference for the Bills too. It felt like heading into that fourth quarter, it was like whoever can just settle in, not make the big mistakes, make a field goal, and walk out of this with a win and move on to next week was going to get the win. And that, of course, was the Buffalo Bills, who have been there and done this before, compared to the Jets, who have basically never been able to win a game like that. So I think their kind of experience and composure showed up in this game. Now, I continue to be wowed by the run game that they have. Their offensive line is a legitimately great strength of this team, and their running backs are sweet. Shout out Ray Davis. A different style from James Cook, but being able to step in, show the vision and some of the just nastiness at the second level. Obviously isn't going to have the explosiveness of a James Cook, but is also very effective. So, you get that. You get some of the crazy improvisational plays from Josh Allen and a solid defense that I don't think was particularly impressive against the Jets. They bunkered down and get one of your best players, Teron Johnson, a huge game-ending interception at the end is a difference maker in this game. But still, I'm worried about the pass rush and the run defense and the talent base of that defense. It's why they're at the bottom of this tier, but definitely a great bounce-back win for the Bills. And then at number 6, I have the San Francisco 49ers holding on to this spot. They took care of business, bouncing back against the Seahawks. I didn't panic about them after they lost to the Cardinals. It was a very weird game if you had watched that game. And a great opportunity for them on the short week to just kind of burn the tape, go out, be the ass kickers that they are, dominate the run game, the run after catch, make some big plays on defense, and they got it done. They play the Chiefs this week. This is going to be a hell of a game. The Niners are favorites in this game. I will remind you guys, the Niners are still the favorites to win the NFC this year. So even at 3-3, I absolutely consider the 49ers a team that can go on a deep playoff run. And the bettors, the market, and Vegas all agree. Then the Houston Texans at number 5. I'm actually very surprised that this offense is so much better when Joe Mixon is playing. Even without Nico Collins here this game. Stroud was so fantastic and has been all season long. I think Stroud has been the best quarterback this year, start to finish. And he was able to do all of the same stuff without Nico Collins. So that was impressive. But I'm a little bit surprised that their offense has really only been dynamic and world beaters with Joe Mixon, who just looks so good this year. Even with the bum ankle, or at least coming off the ankle injury, he's just explosive in a way that he wasn't for Cincinnati over the last couple of years. So that move's working out for them. They got to keep him healthy, but I like how they managed him in this game, where when they pulled away, they took him out. When the game got close again, they put him back in, and he had a big touchdown run. So that's actually been a big difference maker for them, for a team that has really struggled to run the ball over the years. And it does kind of make sense. if you're a team that doesn't have the best run blocking and you're not able to hold that point of attack for too long, just a split second difference with a guy that's a half a step faster, that sees it a click faster, that can make a world of a difference, where you just need to get guys into the second level. And it all adds up there. So that's been a big deal. Honestly, the defense didn't do much to impress me this week, other than, beating up on some putrid tackles for New England. But the secondary continues to just not blow me away. That's probably my holdup with the Texans, if I have one. I mean, I don't have much of a holdup. They're an awesome team. They're in my top 5, but that's something I would really like to see D'Amico get cleaned up as the season goes on. Just a little bit more consistency in the secondary and the defense overall. But yeah, they stay put at number 5. And then the Vikings on bye stay put at number 4. The Chiefs on bye stay put at number 3. I don't feel the need to hit on those teams this week. Just copy and paste what we said about them last week. And then at number 2, I do have the Detroit Lions falling down a spot. I still think this team is awesome. This offense to me is really like a tier above any other offense in the league right now. And when that's the case, you have Super Bowl potential no matter how good or bad your defense is. But man, what a turn of events in what felt like one of the best regular season moments that the Lions have had, even as a part of this build that they've had, to lose Aiden Hutchinson in the way that they lost Aiden Hutchinson, just a gruesome broken leg. Some of these, fortunately, some of these injuries look worse than they are. You feel pretty confident he can make a full recovery heading into the future. But obviously for this season, they're sitting there, third quarter when this injury happened, and they're like, man, we are world beaters. We're the best team in the league. And then you lose your best player on the defense, and a player that the entire defense pivoted around. Their pass rush is going to take a tremendous hit without Aiden Hutchinson. Not just the production and the one-on-one wins you get from Aiden Hutchinson, but any semblance of scheming up that they were able to do, knowing that teams were going to be doubling and sliding and chipping towards Aiden Hutchinson, that's now gone. That tight end that would stay in to chip Aiden Hutchinson, he's now a part of the passing progression. That slided protection towards Aiden Hutchinson that allowed an easier angle for an interior guy or an edge rusher, that's not going to be there. Everything is going to change for this Lions defense. Maybe they can pull off the most eye for an eye trade in NFL history and go get Max Crosby, who from a stylistic and aesthetic perspective is pretty much a carbon copy of Aiden Hutchinson. Maybe they can sell the farm, and they want to do that. I do think it would have to be what you might regard as an overpay to pry him out of out of Las Vegas. But with Dan Campbell, who likes to roll the dice, Brad Holmes, I think, who likes to roll the dice at times, I wouldn't be the most surprised if they did it, but it would cost a lot to do it. I wouldn't hate it if they did it, though. So we'll see on that front. Still like this Lions team, but hard to not have some pessimism coming off that injury. And then the Ravens at number 1. Man, I just think this is the most lethal iteration of a Lamar Jackson offense that we've seen. Because early in his career, you had the Greg Roman stuff, the 12 personnel, the play action, the run game, blah, blah, blah. Last year, they opened things up. They were still a very good offense with the spread and the drop back, and Lamar checking out all those boxes in terms of, can he beat teams as a drop back passer with his arm? He answered yes, resoundingly, at least until the Chiefs game. But this year, the perfect marriage of all of that. To be able to have a Derrick Henry and the ability with a Charlie Kolar and Mark Andrews finally showing up, Isaiah Likely, Pat Ricard, to have the Greg Roman style. It's different schematically, but the same style, that ass kicker mentality. But then from one drive to the next or one game to the next, whenever you need it, the ability to just flip that switch and be a great drop back passing game with Lamar playing at an MVP level again. I would argue Lamar's been more consistent this year than last year. That's scary. Zay Flowers has been so dynamic. This is just straight up scary. And you pair that with the fact that this defense is doing their part. They aren't like dominant defensively. We've seen that the last couple of weeks. But what they do is stop the run, have good blitz designs, and they come for the football. So you trust that with the offense playing like this, they're going to get enough from the defense. And even in that Bengals game, like that's like the most extreme situation where the defense is playing bad, but you get one really good play from Marlon Humphrey to win on a slant and rip the ball out of Jamar Chase's hands. So impressed by the Ravens' ability to get here so quickly. You know, I had so many questions about the Ravens coming into the year. What I didn't anticipate, I think, was them really establishing this identity for their offense, kind of tapping back into some of the heavy personnel stuff that has worked for them in the past. So just so impressed by the Ravens this week. Number 1 in the rankings heading into week 7, 4 straight wins for Baltimore. All right, that is going to do it for the power rankings. Let me know where you agree, where you disagree. Love to hear from you guys in these videos. Please do hit that like button on the way out. I will have my full game recap show on the Fully Inflated Football podcast tomorrow, so make sure you check that out. And then just a little channel update here at the trimester point in the season. I'm going to Mexico for a wedding. Very excited for my own little bye week here. So next week's going to look very different in terms of the scheduled content. I do want to still make the power rankings, but there's a chance, depending on how the travel goes and how much of these games I'm able to catch up with on time, there's a chance we don't have power rankings next week. So I just want to give you a heads up there. Sometimes it's fun, though, when it's a 2-week jump. But next week, the main focus will be my Studs and Duds series. So as soon as I kind of get back and get settled, those will be coming out by division throughout the week. So you should be getting 8 Studs and Duds videos. That is my player review series where I talk about all of the rising and falling players around the league. If you've never watched Studs and Duds, I think you will very much enjoy it. And I know many of you have been asking where it's at. It's coming next week. So looking forward to that. Lots of good stuff on the horizon here. But that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you guys later. Peace out.